Hey everybody, welcome back to Harmon Garage. I'm Aaron. Today is a big day for Project Longstep. I mentioned in the last video that I had all the brakes and suspension done, and my buddy called me up and said that the cab is ready to come home. So I went ahead and cleaned up the transmission and cleaned all the dust and everything off the frame rails where the cab's gonna sit. I got all my parts ready to go, and we're gonna put the tires on this thing, load it up on the trailer, and take it over to get the cab. I'm not gonna film going and getting the cab. It's gonna be pretty strenuous getting it and putting it on, making sure we don't scratch it or nick it or dent it or anything. So I just don't want the extra avenue of failure. So I'm gonna do a little before filming, then I'll catch up with y'all when we get the truck back over here with the cab on it. But I took the fuel tank back off. It's an aftermarket tank and it's not an exact perfect fit. It would work the way it is, but I'm kind of a perfectionist, so I want to make some modifications to make it fit a little bit better. So I wanted it on before I put the cab on because it sits under the cab, but I'll be able to put it on with the cab on. It'll be just as easy. So truck's cleaned up, frame's cleaned up, transmission's all cleaned up. Everywhere the cab's gonna cover is semi-detailed. So I'm gonna throw some tires on this thing. We're gonna load it on the trailer, head over to the body shop, get the cab put on, and just kind of snap your fingers and I'll be back with a cab. Okay, well, it's actually the next day now. I took the chassis over to put the cab on it yesterday, and after we loaded it up, it started raining. So we got it back over here, but everything was wet, and I was wet and cold and didn't feel like doing much more. So we got it back, and it looks awesome. Got the cab mounted. It's all body worked and painted. And it looks great. So now that that's done, I can get to work. There's a lot I can do now that I have the cab. So first thing I'm gonna do is throw the fuel tank back on. I took it off, I'm gonna throw it back on. So I'll go ahead and get it mounted up real quick, and then we'll start doing fuel pumps and whatnot. Okay, I got the fuel tank all installed, nice and level in the truck. I ordered the Holley Sniper fuel tank 473 C10, and it comes with the fuel pump and the sending unit and all that. So, but it comes in pieces. You got to measure the depth of your tank, which doesn't make any sense because if you order it with the tank, you'd think it'd be ready to go. But you got to cut your return line, put your wires on, put the sock on, heat this tube up, put the pump in, put a clamp on it. But anyways, I got it all put together. So we're going to go ahead and install this in the tank. Hopefully I can get it in with the cab on. And without scratching the cab, for that matter. Alright, that wasn't too bad. And then we got our gasket in there. We'll go ahead and line our gasket up. And everybody's going to have their own opinion on this, but I want to point the fuel lines in towards the frame or to the back, depending on where the holes are, because I don't want to fight with them trying to go forward up there. So I'll come off of here and go down, and there's a hole up there I can run through the frame, and then I'll go forward. I'm going to try to get them it's about as close as I'm going to be able to get them to pointing in, but I can just put a little loop in this one. This one will just have a 90, and they'll go out. Last time I ordered one of these Sniper units, it came with all the stuff to make the fuel lines and everything, so I ordered another one. and assumed that it came with all the stuff to make the lines and everything, and it didn't. So I've got to order the fittings and the hose so we can make the fuel lines, but that's not a big deal. Alright, if you noticed, I didn't tighten anything up. I went around and made sure that they were all started first. These can be a real pain in the butt, especially going through these cork gaskets. You start one bolt and then move on, or tighten one bolt down, then try to move on to the next one, tighten it down, and things don't line up and it gets to be a pain, and so it saves you some time of not redoing it if you go through and start them all first. Ask me how I know. Okay, we got that done. Next, we'll just throw this fuel fill neck on real quick. Okay, the next step is the sending unit, or the level sensor, or whatever you want to call it, the fuel level sensor that goes to the gauge. So I'm going to get it rounded up, and I'll explain to you what you got to go through to get that to work. Okay, so I got my level sender here. Comes like this. It's got the float that goes on it, and it's universal, so it'll work in anything. And since I already know my depth of this tank is 10 1/4 inches because I measured it for the pump. So in the instructions it says any tank between 6 inches and 15 1/2 inches, you take this lower bracket off so you can get the proper adjustment that you need. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So now what we're going to do, line this back up on here. Then we're going to take this and this bar that's right here, that's where your float's going to go. So what we want to do is take our tape measure and we're going to have a gasket on here. So you take your tank depth, which I know is 10 1/2, and you make this half of that measurement to your float bar. You make this half of that measurement minus 1/8. So right about there. And then we're gonna put our screws that we took out back in, tighten this down. Hopefully not snap any more screws off. I'm not sure what's going on with that. Luckily we didn't need those. Got one screwed tight. I'm going to double check it just to make sure that we're still right where we want to be. So I'll throw my other screw back in, tighten it down. And then we're going to loosen this up. This little bar is just in here for shipping purposes. Okay, had to take a little break there. One of my buddies came over to use some shop tools. So we loosen that up. Now we're going to pull this out. And then we'll put this through here. What you want to do is run this until your float is just below there. Now we're going to tighten this down. And then what I want to do is I'll take my float, put it all the way to empty, and then I should be able to measure from the bottom of my float up and get 10 1/4. And that's it, right there. So now we got that done. I don't need to go through this whole thing with you guys. You already saw me put the fuel neck and the pump on. This goes on the same way. Let's take this. Cut the excess off of that. Now we'll install this and move on to the next thing. Alright, I got the fuel tank all done and mounted. Filler neck, vent, fuel sending unit, my pump. I got to order fittings for the lines. Next thing I'm going to do real quick is let's open this up. We got our Holley sniper system. I'm gonna go ahead and throw this on. There's all our wiring, Peter. I'm not gonna do the wiring and that stuff yet. That's a fan control. I'm just gonna go ahead and set the throttle body itself on, and then might as well walk you over and show you now. Today, Santa and his elf came and brought me a full painless wiring harness. With a loaded fuse box, bulkhead connector style, just like stock. It's gonna be real nice. So, waiting on a couple more shipments to come in. I got a vintage air coming, got the gauges coming, got the steering column coming, all that stuff. And I'll get that wiring harness in there and start wiring stuff up before some of the stuff that I can do while it's still apart, that it'll be easier to do while it's still apart. So we'll do a little bit of that, but for right now I'm gonna throw this sniper throttle body on here just because it's something else I can put on there and it looks cool, and it'll get us moving along to the next step for when we start doing the harness to wire stuff up. So I'm gonna throw that on real quick and then we'll go over some more stuff. I went ahead and bolted on the Holley sniper throttle body unit. And I got the gas tank all done, got the throttle body unit up here on the motor. I can start making my fuel lines and running them. And then I went ahead and put our new painless, sorry, my mind drew a blank for a minute. The new painless fuse box in it, just because I had it and I wanted to stick it in there and see how it fit, and it actually fits very well. I've used other brands of harnesses on these square bodies before, and They don't have pass-through harnesses for the firewall. They just have wires that come through and stuff like that, and they're kind of a pain. So the fact that this painless bolts in the right spot and has the pass-through harness, it's very nice. So we'll get into that later. We'll see how the rest of the harness works out, but as of right now, it seems to be really good. So I'm gonna get the stuff that we needed, and we'll throw some fuel lines on here. So the next thing that we're gonna do is install a Serpentine belt setup. We ordered this from Summit. It's March brand. It's got all nice billet aluminum pulleys. Comes with all the brackets for the power steering pump, AC compressor, alternator. So, to be honest with you, I've never done one of these before, so you're learning with me. But looks like the instructions are halfway decent, and hopefully it'll just go right on. One thing to know, difference between Chevy big block and Chevy small block. On a Chevy big block, the harmonic balancer bolt goes behind the crank pulley. On a Chevy small block, you put the pulley on and the crank bolt goes on the outside. So this kit came with nice Allen head bolts. So we're just going to go ahead and install it the way it says to install it. We'll get this crank pulley put on, then we'll throw the water pump pulley, the fan pulley on. We're not going to be running a fan on this motor. You'll see here in a little bit, I got a nice radiator for it with dual electric shrouded fans. So we're not going to need a mechanical fan bolted on. We'll grab our water pump pulley. This stuff is supposed to be our AC bracket. Put this on here, like so. This is going to go right here. That's on, and then it also comes with this little cover for here. Goes on like that. These tiny little bolts, they're small, too small for my fingers. Alright, I'm not sure how this is even possible, but out of the probably 300 Allen wrenches I have here at the shop, none of them were the right size for this little cover. So I ran down to the parts store and grabbed the right size. Alright, and then we're going to take this piece here, which is the rear AC mounting support bracket, and two 7/16 bolts. Put our bolts in, spacers go on the back. I'm going to leave those somewhat loose for right now because they've got adjustment in them. Now it's telling me to mount the AC compressor. So Probably have to tighten those down. We'll see how it goes. So this, like this. Yeah, I'll leave those loose so I can still get to them. This video is probably pretty boring. It's boring me doing it. But trying to show you guys the whole process of building this truck. So we're going through all of it. So now we can put our little cover on here. Get our alternator. And it's telling me it's called the relocator bracket. Comes with the kit. It says to mount it to the tapped hole on the back of the alternator. But I'm not quite sure how it wants me to do it because it doesn't show me. Both of the holes in this are threaded. Looks like it goes on here like this. Hole lines up. And then I guess this bolt that comes with it threads through the alternator and the bracket. So that's what we're gonna do. I put the hole in the bracket is too big for the 5/16 bolt it says to use, but it threads into there. And this is threaded, but if I run it through backwards, it does fit. So I'm gonna try that and we'll see what happens. If it's not right, it's taking it back off away from being right. So that's what we're gonna do for now, because that's where it says to put it. Then we got our adjuster here. Take one of these bolts here and put it on this relocator bracket. And for some reason, it's not telling me to mount the bottom of the alternator, but I know I have to. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. The kit comes with two different sizes for this long bottom bolt, and that's going to depend on which head you have, because the truck style big blocks usually have a bigger bolt. Alright, I'm gonna get the parts for the other side of this out and go through this and see what it's gonna take. Last thing we gotta do is just the power steering pump, and then we'll throw that on and we'll move on. Alright everybody, we're back. It's been about 2 days since the last time I filmed any of this. I went to put the power steering pump on, and the power steering pump that I got was the wrong one. So we went and ordered the right one and got some power steering lines and stuff, and I got the whole front end dress up Serpentine system finished up. So here it is. Looks pretty good. Real clean setup. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt to install, but I'd never done it before, so it's something new. Ended up getting a chrome power steering pump because it had a chrome AC compressor and all that. So the guy that owns the truck said go ahead and get a chrome one so it all matches. And then we went ahead and ordered stainless braided power steering lines also, because the brake hoses are stainless braided and the tranny cooler lines are going to be stainless braided, just so everything matches and looks good. I also got all my fuel lines run all the way back to the tank. Put the filters and stuff in along the frame rail, so those are all done. Got the lower radiator hose on, just little stuff here and there. I've been cleaning up a lot of parts and painting them. I got our, I don't know how well you can see in here, but got our brake pedal assembly halfway installed. It's in there, ready for the booster and steering column and whatnot. So, but steady progress. It's going along pretty good. That's gonna do it for this video. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate it a lot. Next video, we're gonna keep throwing more parts at this thing, and we got another video coming up on the 81 Resurrection. So hit the subscribe button, like, comment, anything you want to do makes it better for me. So y'all have a good one, and we'll see you next time.